Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Retain, Grow, Thrive, the Growave podcast. I'm your host and president of Growave, Joe Fox. Today I'm joined by a very good friend of mine, someone who is a force to be reckoned with, not just in the Toronto Shopify scene, but just the Toronto business environment in general. And we're going to go right into his background. There's going to be a ton of really, really cool tips in here for entrepreneurs, store owners, agency owners, and everything like that. So without further ado, please welcome my friend Jamil. Hey mate, how you doing?
Fantastic, Joe. How about yourself?
Good, dude. Good, good. Thank you so much for jumping on. I'm super excited about this episode. I know you've had some really cool stuff happening, relatively recently with the exit, everything you're up to with Jazz, with other half. So there's quite a bit for us to cover today. So
Yeah,
I guess I gave you a little bit of an intro, but
yeah,
I'd love it if you could introduce yourself and other
for sure.
half as well.
Yeah. So Other Half Studio was kind of it was something that was born out of I don't want to say necessity, but it kind of became something a little bigger than we first realized. And to give a little background on that, my partner and I, Jazz, luckily my partner in life and also my other half, if not my better half, was actually in the Shopify world about 2013 to 2016. So it was really cool because she was actually part of the original design team that built Shopify Home and designed it. So it was really cool to see that. And I think in that ecosystem, she just learned a ton about the space, merchants and vendors. So just naturally, we had both started our own store through Shopify. So around 2016, she actually left because we had started Yellow Beauty. So Yellow Beauty was a turmeric-based skincare store. Um, and essentially at the time, turmeric was, seen as the superfood, insane inflammation, anti-inflammatory kind of benefits, antifungal, but it was used actually in my kind of background. I'm from Bangladesh for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So we saw a lot of kind of cool things happening in that space, especially back in 2015. I think in Australia, like Frank Body, was like a huge
Yes.
thing with the coffee scrubs. So we
Yep.
went the turmeric scrub route. Pretty quickly landed in Anthropology Worldwide, a kind of major retailer in the States. We're in over 300 locations. Got into Urban Outfitters, FabFitFun. And it was a lot of overlap with, I guess, like my previous business in terms of where I'd kind of started. So my background's a little all over the place and how it ties into e-commerce. But I was in the restaurant space before this. Had started a burger chain called Burgers and Fries Forever, scaled it up to over 25 million in lifetime kind of revenue. And I think I learned a lot about branding then. So myself and Jazz, with her kind of Shopify background and experience, we were able to create a really great brand. And that's kind of how Yellow Beauty really took off.
Yep.
It's just people saw the branding, they loved the product, the packaging. It was super kind of photogenic at the time. It was very, from a creative perspective, that was kind of what made us shine. So um, over time, eventually, we were able to kind of take a lot of those skills and transition it. Jazz, being more of a designer, always by trade, wanted to get back into the design world. So she ended up working at Sharma Brands for Nick Sharma.
Yep.
There, she was kind of employee six or seven, I believe, one of their first senior web designers, and basically worked on some amazing kind of Shopify Plus brands there that were doing 8 or 9 figures. And them and the team were really able to kind of increase conversion rate site wide. So she eventually became director of design, learned a lot there, and decided to start freelancing a few years later. And that was about a year ago. From there, just kind of in our first 6 months, she just got overwhelmed with like the amount of business that was coming in. We hired our first designer in January and just recruited a new principal designer about a month ago. And now I'm helping on the go to market side. And why I do it in air quotes is because, you know, I'm sure you know, Joe, it's kind of like you do everything that's not the actual design work. So, like filling up the pipeline, partnerships, marketing, sales, you name it, kind of that's something that I touch on.
I love that. And I feel like that's such a cool journey for both of you. You know what I mean? And I'm a big fan of I think work-life balance is something that's a little bit like, it's a loose term that's thrown around, but I
Yeah,
think, you being able to work with, in your own words, your better half,
yeah,
a lot of the time, like that's amazing. And I think it's so cool. And really the other half really plays to both of your strengths, right? Because it's like,
yeah,
Jazz has this incredible design background, is obviously very accomplished in designing websites that convert really well, knows the Shopify ecosystem inside and out. I mean, I've only known you for probably what, just over 6 months, but
yeah,
in this time I've seen your hunger, your passion for doing everything else, as you said. And I feel that you're very naturally good at partnerships, but that's obviously due to your entrepreneurial flair and everything like that. So congratulations on all three of those, because
thank you.
a lot of people in this lifetime unfortunately don't even have one successful kind of business or venture. But the fact that between you and Jazz you have more than a few, it's really impressive to sort of see. And I guess from just for the audience's perspective,
Yeah,
um typically when we have guests, we really focus on the e-com side of things. But I want to
sure.
kind of dive a little bit into just from a personal perspective, because I know we have a lot of foodies and a lot of people who are really into hospitality and stuff sort of come
Yes,
on the show. So I'd love for you to kind of talk a little bit about how you were able to exit, how you were able to, generate that revenue from a very competitive space, right? Like I'm rereading blue ocean strategy at the moment. And, typically hospitality can be very red ocean, right? Like
yes,
super competitive. You've got like all of these different contributing factors that ultimately, sometimes negatively impact profit margins.
yep,
Cost to labor is really high, cost of goods, and then production is really high. So, can you talk through a little bit around what made you stand out in that competitive space? And then also, for the audience's sake, talk a little bit about what that transition looked like,
for sure.
into beauty and then now into ecom.
Yeah, I'll do my best to kind of draw as many parallels as I can during, so it's relevant to everybody. Because the first thing I always say is like any entrepreneur, any person understands a restaurant business model. Everybody has to eat. Everyone's been fortunate enough to consume at a restaurant. It's a low ticket, highly competitive, high kind of capex business, right? Like you need a lot of capital to get into the industry if you're not trying to be a mom and pop shop. And there's insane competition. It's literally one of the oldest business models out there. So I think for us, ironically, it's actually created a lot of easy dialogue, right? Because everyone understands like those challenges, and pretty quickly they can understand how it kind of crosses over. Uh, you know, so the things that we focused on, I think, from day one was we realized that branding is everything, at least when it comes to a restaurant. Like that's your moat. Without
Yep.
that, you're just another place offering another offering. And I think that really applies to like ecom, right? Like I know there's like the drop shipping community and I have friends in it, and they're very margin and ROAS focused, but like chasing trends, and their whole goal is like get in as fast as we can, scale up, and then get out before everyone else is kind of going out the door. Kind of sounds like crypto, but
Yes. Yeah.
whoops. I didn't mean to make
A
it.
little bit for sure.
um,
It does. No, it sounds like a bit of a kind of a rug pull environment, right? Like it's like get in,
yes,
pump it up, pull out as quick as possible, get as much profit in a short period of time. Whereas like
yes.
I think the way that you're, sorry to sidetrack here, but I can tell that you're very much like a build it to last, kind of mindset with what you do.
Yeah, because starting a business is just really hard, right? So it's like if you're starting with already a half life in mind or a shelf life, I think, at least for me personally, it's very hard to kind of like get past the product because like I'm more of a creative type. And so
Yeah.
like if it's just focused on utility of product, I think there's something to be said about like that type of North Star. But like it does eventually kind of wear out, and like once you optimize the product and the costs and things like that, there's no real story. And they say like stories is what makes us human, right? Like stories
Yeah.
is what's gonna, in my opinion, like beat out AI, that personality, the emotion. So
Yeah.
for the restaurant, it was like the moat was the brand and marketing, right? So what we did, and not to keep it like too focused on that, but it's like we did burgers of the week, burgers of the month, and we actually ran Facebook ads from day one in 2012. So like
Yes.
I was
Wow.
on,
Yeah.
yeah, I was on Meta, and I was kind of like, hey, traditionally, like, that kind of advertising relationship is like you blast out into the ether, you praise someone walks into your store, and you go from there. And I was like, this is amazing. The fact that like you can basically create like a one-to-one dialogue, if not one-to-many, and kind of create like a dialogue versus traditionally in the restaurant industry, what's a monologue? Radio ads, TV ads. It's like there's no
Yes.
tracking, there's no
Yeah.
attribution, none of these things. So early on, we got a lot of like, we were actually on like a Facebook like business tour. I was on many panels for like, um, not so much ecom back then, but like just digital marketing.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you know, I think recognizing that like your product isn't a moat unless like you're building something that's patented, that's like rocket science. You really need like the storytelling and the brand for like longevity, because humans, I believe, buy from other humans at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah.
and and whether that's like a story, even something like Growave, for example, it's like your value prop, is like, hey, you guys have like integrations built in across like the three different verticals. It's cost effective, but like at the end of the day, I think a huge part of even like why we became buddies was like after I met you and after I met even Eldar, it was kind of like I got to know like the different sides of you guys as people, and I think that's what made me connect. And I believe that's like what a brand really is. So
Yes.
taking
Yeah.
all that, across from like restaurants to ecom, I think it's just very translatable. um, and those are a lot of the clients that we work with. They really value brand longevity and creating kind of like that loyalty that once people are dialed in, they will literally fight for you. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what happened to us. One of our most controversial ads on Facebook, we were a fully halal burger joint. We really niched down, and we ran an ad with like hijabi women at the time, and ISIS was like a big thing, and like we got attacked. But then the pushback from our loyal customers was so strong that we actually ended up on like national news outlets, right? And we ended up on like You Gotta Eat Here on the Food Network, and it was just kind of like really helped
Nice.
blow us up from there. So um, I'll wrap it up by saying like there was a lot of highs and lows. 13 years. I think the biggest thing the restaurant industry taught me was like grit, and like not everything's gonna be easy. It's like I've been sued. I've almost gone through bankruptcy. I've had to close down restaurants. I've ran out of cash before. And I think when you compare it to even ecom, is in the last 10 years since when we started Yellow Beauty in 2015, ecom has changed so much from like a
Yeah.
very cheap interest rate environment, which a lot of people don't talk about, right? When the
Hmm.
economy was better, pre inflation, it's like there's so much competition. People are always talking about like CPMs and CPAs, but a lot of people don't talk about even timing in the market, you know,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you enter and the acquisition funnel starts. So I think that's what like restaurants taught me, that like there's always going to be problems, and you just got to like, if you believe in it, things are going to get really hairy at times, and like you could either be seen as brilliant or crazy, right? And only
Yes.
you can
Yeah.
like see it through to the other
See the
side.
difference.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I love that. I mean, honestly, I respect you so much. I knew the minute I met you and kind of got like a bit of your background that I had nothing but respect for you. And I think, you hit the nail on the head there, mate. Like that grit is so important. And I think, um, you mentioned a couple of time frames there with like early stages of Facebook ads and everything, back in 2012. That's when I founded my agency with my business partner that I had in Australia that I sold. And so like a lot of that brings back memories. But you're right. It's like even then that took grit for us. Everyone
Yeah.
who's worked and had businesses through the pandemic or any of those sorts of things, there's a level of grit there. If you can survive that and push through that and thrive in those times,
Yep.
it's super impressive. And I think, you know, the thing that I think is so cool about Other Half is it's like, you clearly have this very cool creative stripe to you. You've got your own brand in the way that you dress and present. I feel like you may have a bigger hat collection than me. Um,
Thank
but
you.
I really like, there's obviously that strong business acumen, that strong sense of branding, that strong sense of creativity. And then, Jazz being able to execute on that creativity and on that vision, and then you being able to push the business forward with that grit. I mean, it's a combination in my mind. And from what I see, and dealing with so many agencies, I think in my personal network, I think I have over 500 agencies. Within
Mhm.
Growwaves, we have well over 150. So like being able to see that, I think that combination that you and Jazz have is spectacular, and I think it's going to be nothing
Thank you.
but continued success. Honestly, I say that I think that's really important. So
Appreciate it.
in saying that, sorry, I'm going on a few tangents here, but
No, no, no. I
I'd
love it.
love, I'd, I mean, we obviously have the audience of this podcast is, our customers that are use
Yes.
Growwave, our partners, whether it be tech or agency. Um, I'd love for you to kind of dive into a little bit of what you mentioned you're wearing all the hats, pardon the pun again, but doing all of the things external, like doing everything as you mentioned before,
Yes.
besides the kind of like creative execution and everything like that. What are a couple of tips that you would give to agencies in the Shopify space, or to, for example, the young freelancer that's starting of thinking of, going from just being a freelancer to moving into starting an agency? What are some of those kind of grit driven pieces of advice that you would give to those people?
Yeah. I think like early on, what I learned was like for us, we're a high ticket agency, right?
Yeah,
So what makes us special and why I'm saying this first is to kind of give a little context as to the advice I'm going to give. What made us special, we've realized, is we're a project-based agency that doesn't do retainers, and because of that, we've created kind of cost certainty for SMBs. So like our ICP
yeah.
is like mid-market to small biz, 3 to 50 million. I can say that because we finally signed a $50 million client, which was like,
Yeah.
what the hell? But like
Congratulations. Yeah.
thank you. It's like we work pre-revenue, and I think the biggest thing I've learned is that like most founders actually get very easily overwhelmed with like technical jargon and like tons of problems and even more solutions, right? So like even looking at Growave, like one of the things you guys offer just really simple is like Instagram UGC. We were just talking to a
Yeah.
Shopify Plus brand that we're hoping to work with, and they sell a crap ton of accessories for cars, and
Yeah.
it's for a very specific brand of car. And rather than like going crazy on like, hey, we can build like this really amazing mega navigation with like car models, break it down by year, and then break it off, make it like super visual with these amazing hover states. It's like I can geek out about creative and design and like UX, UI, wireframing, but like for the client, they're just like,
Yes. Yeah.
whoa, this is TMI, too much information. Like I'm overwhelmed with like tariffs and supply chain. I'm overwhelmed with like it's summer, so my sales have dipped, so I got to get ready for Black Friday. Like I don't care about all these things. What I do care about is can you save me time, money, or headache, right? So with
Yeah.
that person, it was just like we were asking a ton of questions. They said one thing that I was like, I'm gonna attach onto this, and I was really like making it about them. And I think sales is about like learning how to communicate and actually getting information from the other party rather than like spewing all the info. right? It's a very like one-way relationship, ironically, but not the way most people think when they first get into sales. And for
Yes.
me, it was like, hey, if we're gonna help with like increasing, conversion rate or AOV, I need to know how you get traffic, right? That's kind of
Yeah.
like one of my fundamental questions. If I don't understand how you do traffic or get traffic, sorry, I can't help you because lower your acquisition costs. Because like, if I don't understand how your business works, then everything I say is kind of doo doo from there. So
Yes. Yeah.
one of the things he said, which validated, was like, "Hey, we actually have a massive Instagram community, and we do a lot of lifestyle videos. So these kind of like low price accessories are kind of like an easy kind of conversion method for them to be like, I really want this little thing, get them into the funnel, keep going." And this maybe is my Growave plug, but like right away we were like, "Hey, UGC." Like, you guys
Yeah.
have so much great UGC, but it's nowhere on the website, right? It's
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
lifestyle that you guys are talking about. It's nowhere to be seen. There's no like imagery. There's no like people who look like the ICP. Why I do it
Yeah.
in air quotes is because like they're just people, right? ICP
Yes.
aside, they're just
Yeah.
people. So how do we create that same excitement from your IG and translate that to your website so you continue selling the thing that actually matters to the audience, which is the lifestyle, the outdoors, the fun of using these accessories on their like trucks, which for a lot of people are like their kids. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Hey,
and it's
I'm
like,
in Texas, man. I hear you on
right.
that.
So it's like
Yeah.
it's just feeding into that and understanding like the language of actually the customer. Because if you can
Yes.
solve the customer pain point, now the business owner is like, dude, we're on board, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think my thing, like advice would be for us, because we were super high ticket, we have to build relationships in person. It's just so much easier to like get that kind of relationship building and accelerate it. Like, as much as we can do it over a call, most people don't let their hair down because like they're in
Mm,
back to backs, they're in meetings. So it's like trying to meet them where they're trying to relax and get them to like you and trust you. I say that to everybody. If you like me and
yes.
trust me,
Yeah.
you'll probably take a second call. And then from there, I can kind of give you the pitch. Once I learn the first time, like who you are, how'd you start, like I know personal details about you, you know personal details about me, because we've had that conversation even before we get into business, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the only caveat is, of course, like for me, I don't need a shit ton of leads compared to like a SaaS product or something that's like more of a, $99 a month with a free trial. So my methods of
Yeah.
like getting business is very different, but it's at the end of the day, like most of my business is referrals now. It's all about relationships and just getting people to trust me. I think that's what I focus on the most. And I'll wrap this portion up with saying like really like being able to read body language, and I think that's just like shutting up and observing, because I've been pitched many times and like you can feel the anxiety of this person, like you see the wheels turning in their head like
Going
shit.
through.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like, did
Yeah.
I talk about like our roadmap? Did I talk about all these new features we're coming out? Blah blah blah. And meanwhile, I'm like, hmm. I'm like, do you like a burger? Where are
Yeah.
you from?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I travel a lot, so I'm like, oh, are you from this part of the world? Like, do you know how to cook this? Because like Toronto's super multicultural, and I haven't had this food
Yes.
before, right? So,
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
build relationships.
Yeah, no, and I must say to that point, because we met originally at a networking event, so it's funny how these things, kind of come full circle. But I've seen the way that you do that. You're very, very good at sort of like building rapport quickly, listening to people, making people feel at ease. But also, you are a really amazing networker because definitely every
Thank you.
Toronto event that I've seen pop up, you're there or you're in the comments like, I'm going to be there. And, the ones
Yeah,
I've attended, you've been there. So, I really like that you practice what you preach. But I also think that comes from your ability of being a really good entrepreneur, right? Like you can understand people, you're empathetic. You've obviously clearly got experience managing teams and you've got all of that. So I think that's really impressive. So that's a compliment to you. Like in a big
Thank you,
way, I
Joe.
think you get networking and you get business. And I think people who are tuning in, you really should watch how you do it. And if you're lucky enough to meet in person, like I think people will see that from you. You know what I mean? You're very
Appreciate it.
good at that. And people watching this will see it. But to your point, it's like it's much easier to see that in person and to get those vibes and people have their guard down a little more.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing too is like I tell people this all the time. It's like a lot of maybe why people trust me is like I'll tell my story even though sometimes like even my wife used to tell me originally, she's like, why do you talk about the restaurant at ecom stuff so often? She's like, why? And I tell them, I'm like, it's a huge part of who I am. And
Yeah.
ironically, as I mentioned earlier, it's like when I tee up the fact that it's the easiest business model to understand, a lot of people actually bring, a lot of business owners bring in right away a negative. And by bringing in a negative, it kind of allows us both to like see eye to eye at like a lesser stage where we're, can I swear?
It's like trauma
Fuck it.
bonding. It's like trauma bonding.
Yes, that's the word. It's no longer a
Yeah.
dick measuring
Yeah.
contest as to who's doing better.
Yeah.
It's more like
Yeah.
I'll tell them I almost went bankrupt, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, there was this time where it almost like becomes like we're competitive on who screwed up harder, and then it
Yeah.
just kind of becomes funny. They're like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
dude, there was this one time where I had an entire like pallet seized by like the FDA, or like suddenly
Yeah.
something didn't
Yeah.
get shipped," and it's like we just start to kind of laugh about it, and they almost
Yeah.
like kind of relax, and they're like, "Okay, like you've been through some stuff, like." Even if it's not completely adjacent, I understand your industry and the trust is there. And I think like learning to find like common pain points in businesses and letting people
Yes.
speak to them and understanding who you're talking to. So, I'll just wrap this portion up with like, I'll quickly try to identify like, are you a founder? Are you a director? Is this just a job? Have you like, tell me more about yourself. And based on where you're at, like, I'll catalog. I'm like, hey, okay, cool. Like, you don't actually, I don't want to say care for the success of the business. You just care for like how you look in your job and your role. So how can I help you look better?
Yes.
By
Yeah.
helping you with a solution to like maybe you're trying to get a promotion, so you need to hit this. Maybe so it's like trying to meet them where they're at, solve their problem first, and in tune. It's like the golden rule. If I help you and understand you, 9 times out of 10, unless you're a sociopath, you're going to want to help me.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. And it's so spot on. I think, I have a very big philosophy in partnerships. It's like give to get. Like
Yes.
I can't be out here just like or having my team just banging on doors saying, "Hey, where's our leads?" Right? Like it doesn't work like that. And so I think it's like to that point, it's like we always try to be empathetic and understand what's going on because every agency is in a different stage, whether their issue might be making payroll that month, or
Yes. Yeah.
some other agencies are like, hey, we need more customers, or hey, we're about to go through an M&A process. I really need, some time. So it's like I agree completely.
Yes.
It's like you gotta
Yes.
be empathetic. This is why I take your same stance around AI. Like I don't think AI will ever replace that human element. And I think
No.
as entrepreneurs and as business owners and brand owners and partner managers or agency owners, like never forget that human element that you've spoken about so much here. I think it's like that human element, the focus on relationships is just so crucial and so key to your success. Whether you're a SaaS that doesn't have much direct interaction, you still need to make sure that interaction is there along the customer journey.
Can I have a little tiny hot take? It's a bit of,
Absolutely.
I think AI, like everything, is dominating the news cycle because it's become such a, I don't want to say the word bubble, but it's become such a driver of investment and revenue. And it's essentially propping up the economy during like a global trade war that I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's like a bastion of financial hope for like many people that like using that narrative and dominating on fear-based news cycles, which we've become very accustomed to, is
Yeah,
kind of the hot new thing. And like anything, it is going to become a tool that it will get rid of jobs. It will kind of allow, scale ups and startups to do more with less. But at the end of the day, like, humanity as a whole, it's still going to treat it, I think, long term, kind of like on Google reviews or Amazon reviews. As soon as you know a store has a fake review, you just instantly, your trust breaks and you're like, fuck it, I'm moving on.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
a similar thing, right? Like there are people who are going to value, I think, AI for like many things, but I think there's a massive founder driven narrative behind the AI push that I think it makes it sexy to invest and easy to kind of sell hope. But from like the actual core consumer side, I think there's going to be like a pushback overall where like in-person events, things that are real are actually going to gain more value and be worth more in the future
I couldn't agree
because
more. Yeah,
AI is going to go
yeah,
like the way of Canva, right? Like everyone's going to be able to use it, but there's still a lot of people who suck at using Canva. And
yeah,
those
yeah,
larger, businesses are still going to want to use agencies and other things to be like, look, I know I could do this with AI, but like I've got a million other things to work on, including hitting like my $100 million sales goal. Like, can you
yeah,
guys just
yeah.
use AI, do it however, and like handle it? So,
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
rent.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think I'm going to add to this just quickly. In tech and agency, in ecom, we're often at the forefront of technology too, right? Which means we
Yes.
hear the most about things. We use things earlier than a lot of other people. We're early adopters when it comes to these things. There it's like any tool, right? It's only as good as the person who's supporting the tool. Like you can hand a Klaviyo account to someone who has no idea about email marketing and it's not going to work well. I see AI very much as the same. It's like unless you know how to utilize and implement and do things correctly utilizing AI, it's definitely not going to be as as urgent of a replaceable kind of thing that's just going to wipe everyone's jobs out tomorrow. I just don't see that happening. But yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that. Look, I know you and I could talk forever, but
Forever.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna get to I'm gonna literally, but I'm gonna get to the question that I like asking everyone on this because to that point, in e-commerce and in agency and in tech, we all travel quite a lot. We spoke about traveling to events and everything regularly. So I always like to ask everyone, and you can't say a person, what is something that when you're traveling you can't live without? I'll start first because I this is mine. It's a portable battery. It doesn't matter. It's the best portable battery I've ever had, and every single time, whether it's personal travel, work travel, this lives with me because I can get two laptop chargers, I think three or four phone chargers out of it. It's something that I have to travel with. If I don't travel with it, I have anxiety. So, what's yours?
Oh man, I when you first asked, I was panicked. I was like, "Oh my lord!" Like my ADHD, it's like I feel like I lose everything half the time. So I'm trying to even think. It's actually I carry a travel wallet that
Okay.
I
Yeah.
I bought in 2010 when I was traveling to Thailand, and at the
Yeah.
time it was like
Yeah.
you got to be worried about pickpockets and all this stuff. So literally, still religiously, I carry kind of for the Gen Zs out there, they'll know I look like an unk, like with this kind of travel wallet that I wear under my pants, and it's like a belt that's like a clip on,
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
and like I keep my foreign currency in there. I keep my passports, my boarding passes, and like I just wear that through the airport and back, and that's it. And it's like
Nice, nice. Well, that's
it's
good. Look, hey, that's the
yeah,
whole thing. It's like these travel hacks, they have to be something you do religiously and they have to be practical. So that sounds
correct.
incredibly practical to me. And on the pickpocket thing, my wife and I were just in Paris recently, and I kind of like I felt blessed in the fact that we didn't have anyone, try and rob us or anything. But on one of the tours we did the Palace of Versailles on a Saturday. I'd never recommend that to anyone. If you can do it during the week, because it was just It was the most
Slam.
crowded and packed I've ever been, and such a beautiful place, but hard to enjoy it with that size of a crowd. But to that point, the tour guide was pointing out to everyone, like, hey, be careful in this
Mm,
particular room because there are so many like pickpockets target people in this room because you have to go through a smaller, narrow passageway, so
I
more
see.
people bump into each other. So what you're talking about there is incredibly practical. Touch wood, we were lucky there, but
Yes.
that sounds like a very good travel hack. I appreciate that.
Love the question.
Awesome. So, look, man, thank you so much for coming on. As I said, we can chat forever. We'll do a part
Yes.
two of this in a year's time.
Sure.
I know that some of our AI predictions will have sort of like come to fruition by then, and a lot of what we've spoken about, is incredibly useful to the audience. So, thank you so much for coming on. If people want to connect with you, connect with Jazz, connect with Other Half, connect with your brands. Can you give a little bit of a shout out as to where they can do that? I'll make sure it's all linked in the show notes. But I
Yes.
just want to make sure that people can connect with you, can follow with you, can follow your journey.
I appreciate it. Yeah. So easiest place to hit me up is on LinkedIn. So that's Jamil, Jamil, Bhuya, Bhuya. I believe I'm the only one on LinkedIn. If not,
I think you are, mate. I know there are other
yeah.
Jamils, but they're definitely the only one. Booyah.
And other half dot studio. So you could hit me up at Jamil at other half dot studio. That's the domain name and URL. So you could hit me up, or even Jazz, JAZ at other half dot studio. Always willing to chat, whether it's about anything or everything, restaurants, AI, ecom, Growave, whatever. Happy to chat.
Awesome, Jamil. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Really, really appreciate it. As always, appreciate your support. Appreciate the partnership. Looking forward to seeing you in person soon. I'm not sure whether that's going to be stateside or in Canada, but yeah, really appreciate it, man. And thank you so much. I know I speak for the audience when I say this, but the insights you've given today, sharing your story, sharing everything that you and Jazz are up to, incredibly useful. So I encourage the audience to connect. I encourage you to follow the links mentioned. I cannot stress enough how much value Jamil and Jazz give, and just really like I know Jamil means it when he says hit him up if you see him and have a conversation because he's a master networker, and I'm very grateful to call him a friend and a partner. So thank you so much for coming on board. Really appreciate
Thank you, Joe. You're leaving me blushing, which I appreciate. You
it.
can't see it, but I swear I am.
Well,
All
you have a
right.
fantastic day. Thank you so
Thanks. You
much.
too. Bye bye.
Appreciate it.